Hi, I'm Jon Fila. I'm one of the course authors for English 12, and I use it teaching online for Northern Star Online, and I've been using it for a couple of years now. So a little bit about me and my setting. I've been teaching English now for about 18 years, and like I said, I'm teaching for Northern Star Online currently. Our program has rolling enrollment, so we get students coming and going throughout the school year. So that poses a particular challenge so that we need to have the entire course open to any students working through the material. So at some point I could have students just starting the course and then students just finishing the course and then anywhere in between. So I need to be able to answer questions for students that are at any point in the course. It also makes for um, somewhat limited options for group discussion and any kind of collaborative work. So students are largely working on their own when they take the course from me. We also have students that have varied credit requirements. So we'll have students that come in just needing a quarter credit, or some need a trimester credit, some need a semester credit. So we need to be able to break up the content in a way that is suitable for a student with any type of credit demand. And because the course is also shared in our intermediate district and throughout the state through the Minnesota Partnership, we need to make sure that the course is accessible for students as well. So students with disability that need assistive devices, or just students working on different types of devices or different browsers, we need to make sure that it works for everyone. We use Moodle as our learning management system because of some of the features that it has. So some of those are completion tracking. So whenever a student completes an activity, they get a notification that it's been complete. We're able to see that a student has an item marked complete, and all of those are automated settings. And there's a lot of progress indicators built throughout the system that are useful for us. Lots of user data, so anytime a student clicks on something, we see what they looked at, for about how long they looked at it, and how they're accessing the resources in the course, and that really helps us with our course design. Some of the content that was provided in the default version of the course, we were able to um, condense into more interactive elements. So we use the Moodle lesson module for that. We can embed questions so that we can verify students are understanding the material. And some of the book modules that we use for the course readings also contain some interactive elements and allow for different types of student access. Occasionally, there's also a demand for customized roles for students. So a student's IEP might say something like they shouldn't have time limits on quizzes. So in our Moodle system, we're able to create a role for them that allows them to still engage with the course as a normal student, but it ignores all the time limits for them when they're taking a quiz that they're in. Conditional access and restricted access are helpful features to prevent students from seeing content that they shouldn't see if they're in a quarter, trimester, or semester credit, or it allows me to make sure that the content comes up in the order that they need it to. If something might build off of something that occurs previously, I don't want them skipping around. I want them to go through it in order. In terms of the importance of OER, what it allows us to do is change, modify, and adapt, really, in this case, without restriction. So when we find the content that was used for this course, we can format it in lots of different ways. We can break it up. We can go ahead and insert our own context wherever we need to. And because it's in such an open format, there really aren't any restrictions in terms of security or different file types or vendor permissions that we need to worry about. Because we're working with content that's largely in the public domain and just publicly available, it's really easy to find and integrate other resources. So if students need a little more support or some more background information, those things are really easy for us to modify. And then we can change the formats based on how students need to access the course. If they're not going to have access, but they'll still have a device, they're able to still download the course material to their device and do what they might need to do offline, so that a connection isn't necessarily always required. Um, we can make things available to them in PDF documents if they want to print something, audio versions of text, Google Docs. So there's lots of ways we can reformat the material just to suit however they're going to be engaged with it. So when I'm using this course, what's helpful a lot of times is just the parent access. So we can set up guest roles for parents, or because the course is open, I can point them directly to the content that the students are working with if they're struggling in any way or they just want to see what their students are learning. We get detailed student reports. So out of our Moodle learning management system, we get all kinds of breakdowns in terms of how much an assignment is worth, not just for the points, but how much does it contribute to the overall total of the course. And that really helps students make some decisions about where they need to focus their efforts. Lots of opportunities for review. I can continually point students back to previous content in the course if I feel like maybe their submissions aren't really fulfilling the requirements, and point back to where they should have learned that material in the first place. And then as I'm making changes to my course, I can really focus on how well students are doing in each section, and then make sure if there are any gaps that those are probably my fault and I need to go back and make any of those edits in the course. But I want to do that in a way that's going to help the most students. So I'm not just randomly going in and deciding to edit or update a particular page. I'm really trying to see where it is students get held up, and then that way I can make the best use of my time and help the most students. And because it's so open and easy to edit, I can continually go back through the content and put in more timely references, links to current resources. There are some places in the course that deal with current events or things like Twitter revolutions, so I'm constantly updating for whatever the latest example is. In terms of student feedback, the course survey data over the last 2 years consistently demonstrates that students are having a high level of engagement and satisfaction with the course. They believe it adequately prepares them for college. They report finally knowing the value of electronic databases and citing their work. Students routinely state that the course was worth their time and that they were interested in and connected to course topics. So I'm trying to take events or stories they might find in maybe current events or current scientific exploration, and making sure there are references to it in the course so they can explore that, and they're not just learning English and they're not just learning how to analyze something in a vacuum, but it's actually tied to something going on right now. When you get the backup kind of default version of the course, to make it customized just for you and your students, this is about how it worked for me. It took me about 8 hours for each semester credit to go in and update all of the resources and pull them out of the master copy and make my own pages that wouldn't be connected in any way, so I could tweak them and edit them just for my students and not really worry about what was happening with the master version. So it really wasn't too much, just a lot of copying and pasting and just some tweaking after that. The online use for the course, there are a couple of additional supports that I like to put in. Tutorial videos for just submission of assignments, how to share their Google Docs, some additional text directions, but that really wasn't all that big of a deal. So if I just look through my course here briefly, so some of what I was talking about here is, I have all my hidden teacher resources here. These things don't pop up until the students complete the course and then their survey pops up. I can have progress indicators that show up for the students. So as they complete the content of the course, these items automatically check in. and they know what's left to complete. And then that's just the course broken down by unit. So in terms of other types of use, there are Google folders that contain all of the content of the class. So this is broken down by the same type of unit that you saw in the Moodle version, and then just documents for students. So those all come up in the same order that they do in the LMS version, and this is what's embedded in the master copy. So if an update or change is made here, it's made in all of the copies of the course. And then we're also working on a course textbook to go along with it. So kind of breaking it down into a more traditional textbook format. So this would be the entire first unit that will ultimately turn the entire course into this, and then someone could download it as a PDF or print it off as their own textbook and then use the LMS version as a support. So those are some of the big things coming up with the class. So I continue to look for ways that automation can support the content, just trying to include more progress indicators, more feedback loops, more multiple choice quizzes for students to review. And beyond just what I showed with the PDF files and the Google Docs, always looking for other audio versions, other versions of the text for students that might struggle with just reading the original source material, and then just some video versions. I found some animations for some of the items in the course, but always tweaking it. But in terms of just the last 18 years of my instruction, this is probably the most complete resource that I've used in that entire time. That includes using vendor content. And it's kind of fun to watch the students be able to go through the class and give their feedback and see how that changes the course. And so the other thing that I would do now that I've been teaching it for a while, once I have some time, is to use student examples. So once they see the rubric for some of the materials, once they see the assignment requirements, maybe even see an example of a student submission, I'd probably be a little careful about what that looks like, but so I'd still give them the flexibility to be creative with their submissions, but a lot of times I think just having an example of what I'm looking for is helpful. And that's really it for now for English 12. Hopefully that answers some of your questions and gives you some ideas about where to go next.